Amy has been teaching extensively since 1992, emphasizing a practical approach to integrating Tibetan Buddhist philosophy into everyday life. Ordained as a Buddhist nun in June 2000, she has spent a great deal of time engaged in meditation retreats, study, and Buddhist center management throughout the world. We're so glad to have her here tonight and tomorrow night, and then back again the end of March. And thank you so much, Venerable.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much. Great. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So tonight is about love and attachment and creating healthy relationships. And usually it's a pretty, what can I say, attractive topic, I think, for people. We all have relationships in various ways. And we're in relation with a lot of different people. So we will talk about intimate relationships, and we go till 9 o'clock, right?
Yes.
9 o'clock, great. And also your relationship with people at work, your family, community, the planet. So we have a lot of different relationships, and I think it's helpful to try to balance with a good basis of reality how we can do that in a healthier way. So thank you so much for coming to this. So what I thought was helpful, and I think most everybody's here because I was the one who was late tonight. So oh, okay, she's sneaking in, no problem. I thought it would be nice to start with, well, actually, since people are still straggling in a little bit, let me just to hear a little bit from you, if you care to say, what are there any particular things that you have to hear about tonight? Oh, yes.
Attachment.
Attachment.
Big
So
time.
we will talk about what's the difference between love and attachment. And I think I may have taught this course here some time ago, a long time ago, possibly. And it's a course that comes up all the time. It's quite popular. So related to attachment, we sometimes think attachment's a good thing. And what's really the difference, and how does love fit into that, and what's the problem with attachment, and what do I do if I don't want to be attached, and what do I do with attachment to my kids? So that's the hardest attachment I think we have, like that. Thank you. Anything else, other things that are swimming around as people are settling in? Everybody pretty clear about, everybody have love in their life? Would like to, maybe have more of it? Like that? I think that's a great thing on the planet. Okay. So let's start with some meditation. And I really want to thank Nicole and Thupten Khunga Center and all of the people that have helped Thupten Khunga Center and are helping to host me, and Gina for housing me and driving me, and Gina's dog, who, you know, is large but thought she was a lap dog today. You know, so I used to be covered with Geshe-La's white fur from his cat, and today it was like this dog that was like, you know, but I'm a lap dog. Like, trust me. So I'd like to thank everybody that's really helped bring me here, and also that supports the center, and thank you all for coming. Yes, please.
I'd love to know where you're coming from and where you normally teach, and what's bringing you to talk about this topic.
And what is?
And what's bringing you to talk about this?
To talk about this topic? I just came from Nashville, and before that I was in Raleigh. So this is a little 10-day tour of a few of our centers. Nashville is not an FPMT center, but it is in our tradition of another teacher I know, and this woman is doing a center kind of similar size to this room, all on her own. She's put it together in the last year, and she's invited me so many times I had to go there. Like, I felt like you know, and because it was kind of on the way, and then Raleigh, we have a big center there, and so I did some kind of weekend program there. And I live in Philadelphia. And then I have a list, some suggested topics that I put together if it's easier for the centers, because they're often saying, what do you want to teach, and this is what we want, and so I have a few suggestions that already have descriptions. It makes it easier for the centers and the people planning, so they chose the two for tonight and tomorrow. They're two different topics. Tomorrow is about imagining the positive, like that. Okay, thank you. So let's take a little time to settle ourselves into the room. And meditation is fantastic for bringing you present and also allowing your mind to slow down a little bit, which is, I find, enormously helpful. And I just want to review for a moment. We do have a retreat this weekend in Delray. Apparently there's one place left if anyone's interested. And we did this retreat before. And this one's called The Path to Joy, A Path to Joy. So I'm taking people through guided meditations of our philosophy, but through the 8 pillars of joy from the Book of Joy by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So it's really a sweet weekend. And if you're interested, we can give you more info if you want to register. I think there's one, somebody just canceled, so there's one spot left in Delray, like that. And so I'd like to review the meditation posture, and there are variations, but this was taught to us from our teachers, our lineage, and it's supposed to be very conducive for meditation. So you can absolutely sit in a chair to meditate. Just have your feet straight down so the body's balanced, and if you want to put a cushion under your feet, if that's better, it's about you getting comfortable in the position, and it's helpful not to lean too heavily against the back of the chair if you can, because your back will become strong over time. And so the most important part is the extension of the spine. And then my teacher added more recently, and this is a posture we've heard about all the time, so we feel like we know the posture. And then he added, your sides are long. And that was kind of new to me. So it means you can feel the extension, okay, as if the back is straight. And any cross-legged position that's comfortable for you, or if you're seated on a cushion. The hands are placed right at the level of the navel against the body, face up with the right palm on the left. The thumbs are pressed together, and that creates an opener in the heart energy center, the heart chakra, and it kind of constricts, by pressing them together, constricts delusion in your mind. Your arms may stick out, and they represent, in a sense, the wings of the bird that flies to enlightenment. So the right arm is your method, the heart of compassion, bodhicitta, the enlightened attitude. And the left represents the wisdom realizing emptiness, your view. So your way, your method, and your view. The head is in a subdued posture, not too raised, which creates mental distraction, not too far down, which creates drowsiness. So it's slightly tipped forward. Check that your shoulders are not up by your ears. The eyes are lightly closed or slightly open. Focus towards the tip of the nose or the floor in the space in front of you. The lips are lightly together. Teeth are slightly apart. And you may curl the tongue to touch the upper palate and the mouth behind the front teeth. The 7-point Vajrayana posture. Slowly allow your body to settle into this position as best as you can. can certainly feel free to adjust at any time. And allow a normal, natural breath to move through your system. To help us relax, just scan from the top of your head now, all the way down through your body, out your feet and toes, allowing an inhalation to open up space in any places you're holding tension, and allow the exhalation to release the tension. Let's think now about the posture of the mind. How's your mind right now? How are you feeling? If we're not feeling that great, we can always adjust. If we're feeling well, happy, we can enhance. All of it due to the nature of our motivation. What's our purpose for being here this evening? So you may get some information about how to do relationship perhaps a bit better, or any sort of technique, antidote to negative mind states. Can you fold that into a practice that helps you move along a path to full awakening, to becoming a Buddha? That simply means fully awakened one. But that's not the real end goal in this tradition. That's the means for benefiting all living beings, helping all beings unlimitedly. So if you like that idea, and you'd like to be omniscient, free of all fear, with fully manifest compassion, wisdom, loving kindness, feel free to include that in your motivation, the idea of becoming highly realized to benefit all. And just take a moment right now. This is you directing your awareness, how you like it to go, setting that motivation for our time together and all the activities of the rest of your day. Then I'd like you to imagine in the space in front, the space in front of you, facing you right now, I'd like you to imagine one person that you love the most. One person you just so cherish. Place them as if they're seated across from you. And as you look across at them, just notice the feelings that arise right now in you, body and mind, in relation to this person. And just allow those warm feelings to begin to generate in your heart center, like a flower blooming, or like a gem gleaming, the different facets of it streaming out with brilliant, radiant light of pure, unconditional love. Just imagine that warm, loving energy emanating out from the heart center. Let it flow out from your heart. Let it stream across to the person you visualized in front of you, enveloping them with this loving energy, melting into their heart. As your body and mind remain pervaded with this loving energy, wishing them to be happy. Look across at them now. Imagine they are happier, more peaceful, blissful. And acknowledge them in any way you like. And slowly allow them to dissolve back into the space from which they came. And allow all that loving light energy dissolve back into the center, at your heart center. Still filling your body and mind with that loving light. Now I'd like you to imagine the space in front of you. Place an exact replica of yourself seated across from you, facing you. And allow the light to start streaming out. Once again from your heart center, you seated here in the room. It's filling your body, mind. Let it stream out from the center of your heart across to the front visualization of yourself. Enveloping there, that person, and melting into the heart there. Just wishing yourself to be happy. And imagine that front visualization of yourself happier, blissful. Look across at yourself and acknowledge yourself in any way you like. And slowly allow that visualization to dissolve back into the space. And allow all that light and loving energy to return back into your core, where it always is. It's always a resource, and it's always available for you, should you choose to exercise it. Please relax, and when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. How are you doing? Loving yourself? How's that going for you? Sorry?
Not working.
Not working. It's tricky, isn't it? The first person, pretty easy.
Easier, yes.
Person we like, that it flows. Less obstruction, right? Person we love, somebody we choose we really like. That works pretty well. Did that not work for some people? Usually that, yeah, difficult,
Yeah, it was
challenging.
I had the opposite. Like, it was a little easier to love myself. I saw myself like at different ages.
Uh-huh.
But the first one, I was like, I picked myself and I was like, oh, maybe I wasn't supposed to pick myself. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I was like, okay, so I picked my husband, and then it was a little harder. Yeah.
Uh-huh. What do you think was blocking? What do you think made it difficult for you?
For me?
No, in the front row.
Oh, sorry,
right
you.
here.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'd rather hear you. I don't know.
Anything you can put your finger on? Okay, we can continue to explore. No problem.
Thank you.
Anybody else? When you put yourself there, how did it go? It was a little different, wasn't it? Okay. So in relationships, we learn that we're trying to have decent relationships with people, and sometimes we find we don't have a very good relationship with ourselves. So it really has to start there, the first relationship. But it's not about me just having a relationship with myself, because it's about me, is you keep a good motivation. So our tradition is all about setting a good motivation. And then you can lift up any activity and have it be more virtuous or more positive based on the nature of your motivation. So if you think that I could reach a place where I'm unlimited to benefit all living beings. And from that I want to have a decent, compassionate, loving relationship with myself. It's different than I'm the greatest person in the world and the only one that really matters is me. But we really have to be honest with our relationship with ourselves. Okay? So we feel like we can't focus so much on ourselves or be kind to ourselves because that trips us into egotism. Okay? But I'm talking about a balanced regard for yourself. It's one of the healthiest things you can do. And then, because you see people that have holes in themselves, we all have some holes. And the bigger the holes, then you keep bumping into and meeting people from the holes so that hopefully they'll be able to fix me. And if you have intimate relationships from those holes, that's a lot how we bump up against other people. That, you know, you need to fix me, you need to fill this hole. And then we attract people that have similar holes often. So the healthier I get, by having that healthy regard and respect for myself, then the potential to have attract healthier people is there. That's certainly how it worked in my life, like that. I wasn't always a nun. I had relationships, intimate relationships before, like that. So, make sense? So that's the first thing, is just balanced regard, not, we're so flipped out of balance, I find, a lot of times in our culture, from either too much focus on ourselves to that, and then the getting down on ourselves. And then guilt circles around the whole layer of it. So that's the beginning, I think, is just kind of waking up. And waking up with, and I find a meditation practice enormously helpful in the process because of me getting real with myself. And I do it internally on my cushion, a formal meditation practice, so that what happens is you go to work and you have a problem with someone at work. So there's a relationship at work. Then it's not going very well. So then I'm there at work all chewed out around it, and then I start vomiting that out around coworkers after it's already ruminated far too much in my mind. And then I go home and I kind of limp home with my wah wah, I don't feel good. And then I might tell my partner about it, or my kid, or my neighbor, or my friend, the same story over and over, and solidifying this tale about the woes at work and relating to this person, and then very much either getting down on myself and feeling really bad, okay, or lashing out and being really angry at somebody, or all the other delusions that fill in, all the other imbalanced mental states. That's all delusion is an imbalanced mental state. So what we're trying to do is, you have a healthy, balanced mental state. That's how I'm in relation to the world. And you know people like that, and it feels good to be around them. You want to be around them. It's wonderful. So it's just a normal thing. We are living in samsara, and samsara is a Sanskrit term to cycle, to turn, and we're turning through suffering. Birth, old age, sickness, and death. All of that is suffering. So how can I understand, if I understand the nature of that there are going to be some challenges at work. There are going to be challenges in my intimate relationships. I'm going to have some challenges with my kids, partner, neighbors, on and on. Relatives, some friends, yep. There'll be challenges. So, but that way then I can better appreciate things when it's going well. Better appreciate all the positive that's there. Like that. So if I limp home with this interaction that didn't go well, because I'm not feeling that good about myself, and all my vulnerabilities have come up, which I see as weakness, which aren't actually weakness, but we think they are. And then I limp home and I sulk, or I rage, or whatever you do, and then sometimes it kicks into negative behavior, and then I perpetuate a cycle, and I go back into the, okay? So if you have a problem with somebody at work, let's analyze it. Let's analyze it. This is why I found my meditation practice so helpful. In my early days, I wouldn't even call myself a Buddhist then. My early days, I did one meditation course, right? And I came out of it, I was over in Asia, did a meditation course, came home, back to the States, but I didn't know how to meditate. I'd done a course, and so I got a book, How to Meditate. You have it in your library, I bet, in your bookstore. It's a great book. Perfect, simple meditation guide, but it's not just for the beginning. I still use that book at times. It's a really helpful book. You get some kind of guide. Now we have all these courses, some of which Venerable Tendrin is teaching here. It's wonderful. And the courses come accompanied often with meditations. So you can put them on your device and just read it. You can print them out if you want. It's a piece of paper. Some of them are one page. Put it in front of you. You don't need to have some magic that you sit down and I should know what I'm supposed to be doing. So you have some guides. Read a couple sentences, pause, reflect more deeply. That's how I started meditating. But if you want to go further with some analysis, we need to analyze. Not just get angry. Why'd you get angry? So instead of if you get angry, right, we get down on ourselves. So now I'm really using this word more and more. Curiosity. You have a delusion arise. So I have I'm a nun, but I suffer from delusion. I'm not perfect. I'm not any holy person. So if a delusion comes up in my mind, right, now I'm curious. What's going on? Hello? What is happening? Hey, I like to ask myself that. Instead of anger, like, and instead of, you shouldn't be thinking this. Instead of shooting on myself, right? What? How come? Oh, look, I'm a little irritated at that guy. Huh? So what's happening here? Just checking in. So I would come home from work, and there was a guy at work that was really disturbing me. He was a big guy, he was very domineering, and his whole department was kind of, I was scared of them. I had to do some work with him. And what happens is when you have a problem with somebody, then what sometimes the mind does is it solidifies around all the negative aspects of that person. Okay, so that's what anger, aversion, and hatred does. It underestimates the reality, and all I see, because it's underestimated, are all the negative qualities. So I'd be at work and I'd be like, he's a jerk. He's so big and he's overweight and I hate his shirt and his hair. He never combs his hair, and he, and all of this would come like streaming up the hallway to me. There was that. So, and I got tired, and you get tired of these patterns. You get tired of somebody holding you hostage. He's not doing it. It's me that's doing it. My mind is doing it. So I went home, and how do I fix it? Well, and I remember the meditation course. Well, let me think about it more deeply. So then I go in, I close my eyes, there he was. I made a little space at home. I lived in a little room, had a little loft above the bed. Great. I didn't know what to do, but I had a little box, put a scarf, I put a candle. That was my first little meditation space. And so I'd sit there and I'd think, so what's wrong? All right, what's really wrong with him? Let's really be true. What is wrong with him? And does he have any positive attributes? So fear and sadness, they don't really let you focus on the positive attributes. When you're feeling fear and sadness sometimes, it would make me depressed, work with him. I was afraid of him. I was intimidated by him. Okay? So you have to check your mind and how it works. And what I determined from my mind was when fear poked its head up, and when sadness would poke its head up, then they would be armored, and anger would come out and be the bodyguard for both of them, and armor myself with anger. And I'd get hostile and snippy and angry, and with myself to start. But then sometimes I'd say something snippy to somebody at work, or I'd see somebody, I'd have some glib remark about him to somebody else. Like that. So just understand that often fear and sadness armors the bodyguard. So, and did you ever notice people, they're driving? This is South Florida. We know what driving's like here. What was Gina saying to me? She said, yeah, and then there's certain times of the year you have to take real care when you drive. There's different people, there's older people on the road sometimes. Soon we're going to be those older people, right? I'm already in there, I think. But I see people driving, I've talked about this before in here, and they get really angry. Well, he was in my lane. He didn't signal, and he got into my lane. Like, you own the lane, like your name is etched in the road and you build it. No, like, let's analyze. It's not your lane. You share that. We've shared humanity when we drive. And then but what actually happened is somebody cut in front of you and you hit the brake and you were afraid that you were going to have an accident. So armor comes out. The anger comes out. Bodyguard. Like, can't express my fear and sadness because that shows my vulnerability. Okay? Nothing wrong with vulnerability, by the way. Okay? So we just want to, so I would go back and then I would sit down and say, well, I know Buddhism would say, the guy has some positive attributes. So I said, well, what, does he have any? I don't think he does. I go into work every day thinking he doesn't. Does he have any? So this is my analysis. This is meditation. And suddenly I could rack up 5 different positive attributes he had that I was choosing not to see, to be blind to. They were there. And then I made a deal with myself in the meditation. Tomorrow when I go in, I'm going to try as hard as I can to focus on the positive attributes. And I'll notice if negative ones pop up, I'm going to, thanks very much, we're not dealing with you now. Concentration, focus on the positive. And I did. And I did it every day for a while. Every day, and he started to look better and better to me, and we eventually became friends. Okay? And then when we became friends, okay, because friends trust each other, you built something up. You've taken a few risks with each other. You've revealed something personal to each other because you're feeling safe, it's feeling okay, felt good. And now you're ready to hear each other and you might take advice. So once we became friends, I could later say to him, sometimes in jest, but sometimes with a little nudge, later privately, did you need to say that remark to her? With that tone? Like, hey, you're a big guy. And when you say it with that tone, it's scary. You looked, and I'd make a joke and I'd be like, whoa, you were like Attila the Hun today. Really? And then he'd kind of laugh and he's like, I didn't mean to say that. And I'm like, well, why don't you think about why you said it? Because you said it and you say it a lot and it's scary for people. And I was really intimidated by you until I got to know you. Now you're just a big teddy bear full of insecurities, but people don't know that. And then he could hear it. Like that. He could say stuff to me, too, about how I worked, things like that. And you're safe. It's okay. So then you can have a better, more wholesome thing. So it was on my cushion, my internal practice I would do so I could come out in my external thing. How am I going to be in my workplace? How will I be when he's walking down the hall towards me? Or I have to go into his office and do something with him. Because we don't want to be held hostage by those negative experiences, those uncomfortable experiences. Make sense? Okay. So I find a meditation practice just so essential, so helpful to be able to do that work. And I wasn't any meditator at the time. I didn't know it. It was me really reflecting in a real way. Not just letting my mind ruminate through all his negative qualities over and over and tell everybody else that to solidify that he was evil, because he's not evil. And nobody's inherently good or bad. So I a little bit through my analysis, patient analysis, be patient with yourself. It takes time to transform your mind. So with some patient analysis, I could get a little clearer on how he really was. And see him in a wholer picture, not just the negative, but there was more to him like that. So sometimes these imbalanced mind states keep you in prison, and they're just telling you part of the story, not the whole story. And that creates problems in relationships. Okay. So now I'm going to bring Tina here into our room, who's a Buddhist. Okay, isn't that the title of tonight, maybe? Okay. Thank you, Tina. I heard she just turned 80.
Wow.
I think she still has the best legs ever. Amazing. So, what does love have to do with it? How does that help? Love and attachment. Love and attachment. Okay, what do you think? What is love? We just did a meditation about love. What's love to you? I'm just curious. You've all probably experienced some sort of love, whether it's intimate partner, children, parents, sisters, brothers, friends. What's love?
Understanding.
Understanding, sure, is included in love. Yeah. What else?
Wishing,
Putting others before you.
What's that?
Putting others before you.
Putting others before you. Yep.
wishing for others to be happy.
Wishing for others to be happy. That's kind of the crux of it. Wishing for others to be happy. So, and that's really the basis of pure unconditional love. Wishing others to be happy that allows you to put others before you, to understand, have an understanding, all these things. And all the other things you might float around of caring for somebody, wanting to do something for them, wanting to buy something for them. I like spending time with them. I feel safe with them. I trust them. All those things come out of the basis. But the fundamental thing is I want them to be happy. Is that how you love everybody? Right? So what happens? What's the other experience?
Oh, just fear, insecurity, and then it manifests in selfishness or just concern with self.
Concern with self. That's attachment. That's the biggest, a love is wanting the other person to be happy. Attachment, I want to be happy. It's all about me being happy. Okay. Now it doesn't mean you can't engage in relationship and certainly have some ideas for yourself. That's normal. Of course we want to contribute and get some things back and put some things in, but if you don't have the idea, I want the other person to be happy ever, if there isn't some reciprocity in that way, I don't know how you're really going to be happy in relationship and do it in a healthy, wholehearted way. Think about it. So we're very self-serving often. It's just the nature of delusion for human beings. Just a normal the setup we have. So we work on it. And just noting. So people were asking me, I taught last night in Nashville, this course, and people were saying, well, what do you do if you're in a relationship and you're the one giving all the time? Anybody have that situation? Yeah? You're the one always doing for the other person. Now, so there's balances, but some people are much better at serving. We all know people. Some people are they just love to serve. They're always caretakers. They thrive on that, actually. Okay? And some people, never. They're leaders, or they're the dominant ones in the relationship. They're the ones who make all the decisions. They're the ones who are always right, or they're clear about this is what we're going to do. How do you balance that? And so one interesting thing is, I have two friends. They've been together about 35 years. And they really are very conscious in their relationship. And they really have a good relationship. But they noticed over the years, he has a very dominant personality. And he's been kind of, he was a CIO, a chief information guy for Priceline or something. He had a big job. And she was kind of his assistant. She kind of works as his assistant at times. And that's her personality. She serves. She likes to serve. She doesn't make many decisions. She's really, when I'm with her, she's a very close friend, old friend, and when I'm with her and I'll say, what do you want to do for lunch? And she's like, whatever you want to do. So we know people like that, right? Okay. But she's happy doing that. She doesn't resent it at all. But somehow, because they're conscious in their relationship, they noticed. And he was saying to her, what about you making a decision for dinner, the next time we have dinner? And what if, and she'd be like, well, I don't really care, whatever, But so they would discuss it, and then they said, but it might be an interesting thing for us to do so that I'm not always the one dominating. Like he noticed, and she noticed. So their next holiday they took, the next vacation, he said to her, why don't you pick it this time? And you can discuss it with me. So she listed a few options, and he said, they all sound great to me. I'd be happy with any of them, And he was often planning it, and it was her job to do some of the planning, but he said, I'll back you up and help you. Like, give me an assignment and I'll do it. And they planned, and they had this great holiday. And she said to me she felt empowered, and it was really a good exercise for her, even though it's not her thing. But she could see how he felt at times, always making the decision, and he got tired of making the decisions. And this way she was better able to assert herself at times. But they still were themselves. So that's a neat exercise that you could try in your relationships where you feel that I'm not really getting heard, I'm not doing anything. Now, the thing is, they discuss it and communicate. So if you find that it's take with somebody and you're not happy with it, can you express it? Can you bring it up in a gentle, loving way, because you love this person, if it's a partner of yours, in a gentle, loving way at an appropriate time? Okay, you have to find appropriate times to have these conversations, right? Some people pick really inappropriate times, and it doesn't work. You know, they're running out to a major meeting, and you're like, we need to talk about, you know, we're not communicating well. You know, are we okay now? You know, it's not. Pick a good time. You know, even if you need to make an appointment with them, I really want to kind of talk a little bit about, you know. Now I know that, and if you're in a, let's say you're in a straight relationship, male, female. Men and women communicate differently. Generally, we do. Men and women communicate differently. So you might, if you're a female, you might bring up to a male partner that we need to talk, and the male partner will say there's nothing to talk about. Right? So I used to be in relationships like, you know, there's some, and then the male partner would say to his friends, she wants to have the talk. We need to talk. I need to go home to talk tonight. You know, all I want to do is go to sleep, have a beer and go to sleep, okay? So find humor. Lace it with humor then about how we're going to talk. Make it light, something, and maybe you find an appropriate time, you're driving somewhere, and it comes up about, I'm just, you know, either not really feeling that you're focused on what I'm saying at times, I'm feeling that I'm giving a whole lot in this relationship, I really want to be with you. And I'm feeling we need some balance. And just see, you know, some constructive talking. If you have a partner that's really not interested in that and doesn't care, that might tell you something about having a relationship like that. If you're unhappy in it. So there's always some kind of compromise that can be helpful. That. The other thing is communication. Let's look at how we communicate. So, communication also requires active listening. It's not just how you express yourself. It requires active listening. How do you listen? How many of you are married in here, long-term relationship? Okay, not very many. That tells you something. Okay, in long-term relationships, this is your most cherished person. And because they're around a lot, okay, we can't help, we take them for granted that they're going to be there tomorrow, and we, you know, and sometimes when they talk about stuff, we've heard it a lot of times, so we tune them out. Male, female, doesn't matter. We tune them out. But they're talking about something. And sometimes it's arrangements. You're going to pick this up, you're going to go get the kids, or you're going to do this, or I'm going to the store. And sometimes, did you ever notice, the sound goes in here, right? But as far as hearing what they said, that didn't happen, okay? But the sound goes in, I'm doing something on the computer, you're looking at your phone, you're watching TV, and what you actually hear is, okay? And I've been witness to this at times. I was with these two people close to me, staying with them once when this happened. I watched them, it was a morning unfolding, and then somebody turns and says, I told you. And the other person says, no you didn't. Yes I did. No you didn't. And then they had a fight. This couple, they had a fight right in front of me. And fortunately, they trusted me enough, and I'm close enough to them where when this fight started, and I watched the entire morning, watched them communicate, and I had a little flag of like, well, he didn't hear a word of that, and she didn't say what's happening. And then fortunately, they turned to me in the middle of this and were like, and then she actually said, did I tell him? You were here this morning, and I said, you did explain that, and that, but you never told him anything about picking the kids up. I never heard that. So she was like, oh. So we store stuff in our heads. And then I think I told you, but I didn't. Okay. Or I did tell you, but you weren't listening. So just check, how are you listening? And this is a great offering you can give your partner. Great offering you can give your partner, long-term or a new partner, is to actively listen to them. Can you listen to them without multitasking? A bigger offering. And I mentioned this in here before. So I was at a center, and this wasn't an intimate partner, this was somebody we worked with that was a friend of mine. And I was at this center, running the center, and we had talked about that we didn't think we were communicating, me and the manager. And so we were in the kitchen, and I was cooking something at the stove, and the sink is behind on the other side, and she was washing dishes. There's a counter in the middle. She was washing, and she was talking about something that I thought was important. And this is after we had discussed our communication style, that we needed to practice and be better listeners. She was talking about something I thought was important. So all of a sudden I thought, I want to listen to her now. And I turned off the cooking, and I turned around to the counter. I was just sitting, listening to her, full on. I wanted to make sure I got it all. She's washing the dishes. She finishes the dishes, shuts off the sink, the taps, and dries her hands, and she turns around. And then, what does she say? What's wrong? Right? Because we don't ever have a moment that you're just talking to somebody. Because we've got this going on.
Yeah.
That's not communication. I think that's rude. It's one thing if you're like, wait, can I just respond to this one thing and then I'm all yours? So, but it's kind of like, really? You got a person in front of you. So check that out, how you're addicted to your technology and it's in the middle of you and somebody else, right? Check how that's going. So that's a nice offering I think you can give to somebody where I'm really hearing more what you are saying and holding it like that. And then you have attachment seeps in. What I want. What I need to have. So, and one thing I would say is some people ask me about attachment to their kids. I don't know how you can, unless you're highly realized, how you can live without attachment to your kids. I think that's really the hard one. Attachment is seen as one of the three poisons, one of the three poisonous states of mind. So rooted in fundamental ignorance, confusion, having a misknowing of reality, of the nature of reality, we then over-embellish things and get attached to them, and we underestimate, and then we have aversion and hatred, and then other delusions crop up from those, and you can get pride and doubt and jealousy, fear, depression, anxiety. I think you get it. Laziness, arrogance, things like that. Imbalances in the mind, that's all rooted in fundamental ignorance. So when I'm attached, and so I think with children, this is usually the strongest rope on the boat, especially if you're a mother and they came through your body. And I think it's really hard to have that relationship without attachment. There's a lot of love, but you certainly have certain points and things that you want to have happen with your child, and when your child's doing well, it's a reflection of yourself, or you're just feeling this is fantastic, and when they're not doing well, how much it affects you. And I don't know, I think Lama Yeshe was even saying it's even hard to have intimate relationship without some sort of attachment. So just realizing that that's its nature, but we can still do it in a pretty healthy way. I know my last relationship, the guy, we actually got ordained together. As I sometimes say, the best way to break up. And we had a great relationship, really wonderful guy. We're still very close friends, and lovely guy. And so I think we really got to, a point where, and I got to experience relationship in a pretty quality way. And all the relationships I did before led me up to that. So fortunately I was able to learn from all the mistakes I made and do each one a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. So let's hope we're doing that we're learning when we fall flat on our face and mess up and there's a horrible breakup and you get divorced or you've got custody battles. And so let's just hope that we learn from that and move on and can do it a bit better. But it's not necessarily about blaming the other. It's what's my responsibility? What am I bringing to the relationship? What am I contributing? Is it positive? Is it a positive thing? Is it a negative thing? And how can I improve? And they're saying that I do these things. Do I do these things? Like, can I kind of step back for a moment and acknowledge with humility? You know, can you let it humble me that, yeah, I do these things like that. And you know what? It's okay, because we're human beings, and that means we make mistakes. That's okay. I really forgive myself and accept that I'm going to make mistakes. And I'm more, because I accept it, I'm more forgiving. If I accept it in me, I'm more forgiving in me, then I'm certainly going to be that way with anybody else. Okay? Any questions so far? Anything? I said yes.
I thought you said attachment was to yourself, right? So I don't see how that relates to
Attachment is I want to be happy. What's in it for me?
Okay. So with the child though, like we have a child, we want her to be. Well, I'm speaking for myself. We want our child to be good, right? So how is that? That's not attachment. When you wishing.
I think it's great to want your child to be good in things, but it's also, you know, that you have your own agenda. So that's a little bit of attachment, not just wanting them to be happy, but, you know, and the thing is, when your child grows up, and I think I've talked to people with young children, teenagers, kids in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and like that, and, you know, how many of you did what your parents wanted you to do?
Yeah.
No hands, right? So then we raise a child, and you impart some great values, let's hope, when they're young. And after a few years, it's kind of over. And they get they have their value system. But, you know, they're certainly under our control for a while, and we're going to explain, you know, how they do this. They go to school, and these are the things you're going to do. And then they're merging and exploring into their own being of what their natures, and they also have karma unfolding in them. A Buddhist belief, that's a Buddhist belief. So they've got seeds in them already dictating how their life's going to go, and what challenges and what happiness and what glory and how ease and difficulties, and then they make some decisions that you're not happy with, and friends that you don't want them to associate with, and, you know, and hey, we did that. Like, why is it going to be any different? So is that accepting, or are you're going to be at war with them, that it has to be like this? That's attachment. Yeah. Yes.
You spoke about experiencing fear or sadness before anger, or deeper than anger. Do you feel that it's necessary to experience those emotions and welcome them with equanimity, or do the mental analysis and like get past it?
Yeah, I don't know if they're deeper than anger. Anger's pretty deep. At times it gets activated, but I do notice that if you peel back anger, there's some other things below it, and people just go, oh, you know, I'm angry, I'm an angry person. No, there's usually insecure, vulnerable, and so I've mentioned this before in here, vulnerability frightens people. And that's where you get into sadness and fear. And then you have, in cultures, like a lot of our culture, I think it's hard for guys to say they're afraid of something. You know, and women as well. There's some women that, you know, I'm not afraid, I can do it. You know, and they're terrified. What if you say you're afraid? So this vulnerability, there's a sociologist from Texas, Brené Brown. Some of you have read her. Brené Brown, she's amazing. And she kind of reframes vulnerability. And she says, instead of helplessness and fear and weakness, she says vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. That's very different. You know, it's very positive. You know, so when I notice that little gushy place in me, and I'm challenged by it, and I'm afraid, and I'm questioning whether I'm going to be able to do this, or am I in danger, or what's going to happen for my kid, and so maybe I need to get creative and figure out some other system with my kids, so that when I drop them off, that I know that, you know, we're going to innovate. You know, we're going to change up the system so that I am going to be more supported, and things like that. More support. Like I'm commercial break. Okay. Segueing in. Sorry, no, I'm leading a pilgrimage in May to a remote retreat center in Nepal called Laudo. this is the view from Laudo.
Oh, that's pretty.
It's in the Mount Everest region of Nepal. And so I led a pilgrimage October 2018, a year and a half ago. And it's a fundraiser for Laudo. It's a sacred place to my teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who's in this room on the right, over there. And I've done a lot of retreats at Laudo. I think I've spent, somebody asked how many times have I been there, and I think I've been there about 2 to 3 years of my life, up there doing retreat. His sister lives there, she's a nun in her 70s, and we basically have a day in Kathmandu, and then we fly, and I show you a few temples off the beaten track. We then fly up in a very small plane to a trekking village. It'll be the flight of your life. And then we trek, and we walk for several days over the most gorgeous scenery you're going to see. And we get to Laudo, and we slowly acclimatize. We take our time. It's all safe, this trip, very, very much organized with safety in mind. And we do a 3-day, partially silent retreat that I guide people through meditations at Laudo. The place is really about meditation, and it's built around a small cave that is said to, where Lama Zopa Rinpoche was said to have gotten enlightened in his last life. And then it developed into, there's a beautiful meditation hall, and there's some buildings and some cabins, and we stay there. And then we finish the retreat, and then we'll explore a day and a half, a little bit around the area. There's a big nunnery below Laudo, and there's Rinpoche's birth home that's a little bit like Jesus's birth, very simple place. And then we walk down to the plane, and we fly back to Kathmandu, and then we stay in a very nice hotel. Okay? So if you're interested, I can give you more information, but a year and a half ago I hadn't led a number of people up there. I've led 1 or 2 people up, and I've taken myself up many times. But suddenly I had a group of 23 people, and I was just forging ahead, and there were a lot of arrangements and a lot of planning and a lot of things, and then my sister phoned me one day and left me a voicemail and said, she said, I've been thinking about your upcoming pilgrimage, and I really admire you that you're doing this. You're going up to this remote place, and it's very high, and you're taking these people and all the stuff you have to do, and she goes, it's really incredible that you're doing this, that you're just forging ahead and doing it. And then I got her message, and then I was like, I was terrified. I was suddenly like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like 1 or 2 people, no problem, but 23 people, I'm responsible for them. And we had a container, there's a tour coordinator in San Francisco, fully insured, and I've got a ground operator, we've got a crew, we've got porters, we've got guides, but it's my trip. And so I was really like, oh my God. And so I looked at that, and I went, okay. We've done everything with every safe precaution in place. We've had medical forms for people. We've done extensive interviews with people. They've all been screened, and everybody knows this, and the itinerary was detailed, and they know how high it is, and they know, and there's a packing list, and it was I've been up there many times, and it was one of the richest things I've ever done in this life. It was just amazing. The group was amazing, and we had an amazing time. So again, I was okay to look at that without getting angry about it or snippy or, and just, so I think it's helpful to look at those and analyze what is going on. And, so if I'm afraid, analyze it. And then I looked and I went, we put everything in place, and the only other option is cancel. But that's pretty disappointing, and why? We've done all the proper things like that, and if you're sad, analyze why you're sad.
Don't just sit and cry for like a day, you just actually have to think about it.
I mean, you might cry for 5 minutes, sometimes people in extreme depression cry all day long, but sometimes sadness comes up. It's just one of the things. Sometimes you lose somebody, and sometimes you're sick. Sometimes your kid is sick. Sometimes your partner's sick. And there's things that, you lose your job, you're having money problems, or you're overwhelmed by global warming, or whatever's going on in the planet. So you want to analyze a little bit. And then my feeling is I'm not going to dwell in it, but I want to understand why I'm sad right now, and why this is popping up, and then, but I'm doing everything I can do in my life that I feel is meaningful, and then it motivates me, and then, okay. So rather than putting some armor on of anger, I'm like, and I see when I get angry, but before I get angry, I get irritated, frustrated, and annoyed. Those are lesser degrees of anger. So these things come from meditating, of you getting to know your mind. So now I catch it at irritation. But it doesn't have to go to full-blown anger, because I'm like, this guy, and I might even have a thing in my mind, this guy's really irritating. Look at that. But, sometimes curiosity, I'm like, imagine that, He can't stop talking about himself. It's amazing. And then I'll have a little voice sometimes back here, humor. Amy, do not open your mouth right now. Because I might say something snippy or, So there's that, but I'm kind of playing with it with humor and then noting if I respond negatively to him, I'm just going to revisit the scene again and some suffering's going to come and bite me back. I don't want that. Karma, how karma relates. So if I do something negative back, karma says suffering's coming back to me. I don't want that. So watch the anger. There it goes. It's just another thought. Let it go. And this is a human being. And in the morning I had a motivation. Can I fully wake up so I can benefit all living beings? All living beings, the emphasis on all. That includes this person who's irritating me right now. Oh, I just left them out of the equation? It's all living beings but this jerk? No, that's not my motivation. It was all living beings. Is this person more challenging? Indeed. Sometimes I'm challenging. Right? We're all going around together in this. Interdependence. Interdependence. So the more gentle and patient that I've learned to be with myself, I'm going to play that with the other person. Because I know I can be irritating at times. So this person irritates me, I'm purifying some irritating karma right now. That's all. Right? But these are different antidotes, I'm saying. I'm just layering several pieces of my practice on of how I deal with it. And a lot of it's been informal meditation. And then that informs the external when I go out there. Just like that. And if you're working over and over and it's somebody close to you that's really bothering you, you have to work again and again and again, like that, again and again. And then eventually that automatic practice that you did on the cushion, the good stuff, will come out, and suddenly that'll get activated. Why? Because I practice it on my cushion. Some more positive behavior, practice it on my cushion, like that. I wasn't going to take a break in the session, but I see people getting up, so everybody okay? Pretty much okay. So is that helpful? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next thing I was going to speak about is understanding, okay, so personal relationships, children, and just in general with friends, partners, family, other people, community. What sort of expectations do you layer on people from your attachment? So when attachment gets activated, you're so sweet sitting in meditation posture. It's like you can relax if you like. You like the posture, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Works for you.
It keeps me focused, especially after a day of activity.
Yeah, absolutely. So when attachment gets activated, which is a normal human response, and the other thing is we are a little bit influenced to be attached. We're influenced to be attached from a number of non-Buddhists around us, I would say, okay, that think attachment is a good thing. So my kid's in the school and I'm going to push and foster them to get into that teacher's class with this thing, and they're going to do it, and they're going to be on that team, and it's my kid. And over and over and over. So the thing is, are you happy in that space? Usually not. Does it help your kid get into that thing a little bit more? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Okay? It's embarrassing for your kid at times as well. It can alienate you from your kid, and it can cause alienation from you and others that you're fighting against, other parents that you're, and I mean, look at this other thing that just came out in the news was the celebrities that were paying to get their kids into this, to get the standardized test results changed so their kids could get in to these higher schools of, you know, whatever, and they were paying off people, and it was completely illegal and whatever, and they got caught. And I don't know how many more were doing it that didn't get caught, but they got caught. And the whole humiliation and on and on. So what if we are, you know, what if I can understand that I want to do this for my kid or somebody in my life, that it's important, and then you take whatever plans you can do, you move that through, and then, you know, and let part of it go, where I'm not going to be chewing people up in the competition. One thing I heard in an interview with His Holiness, and the things that impressed me was don't be competitive, he said, and don't be a hypocrite. Because I grew up in a really competitive family, and it was uncomfortable. And then I got into my 20s with that competitiveness, that edge, and my job in my 20s, and all that I was doing, and my career, and all the things. And I think at times, I really, what's the word, where if two of you are competing for something, or were, you know, and I was really such disregard to the other person, because I was going to win, I was going to get that. I was going to get that thing, that position, that job, that whatever. And this blindness of me, myself, and I. And it's really unpleasant, you know. And I think from thereafter, you know, some of the karma came back to me. You know, you could see kind of negative things taking form. I don't know if it was from that, but just a very uncomfortable space in my own mind. But it was an influence around me. So there's times when, like, for instance, I had a boyfriend in my 20s, and he used to say to me, if you loved me, you'd get jealous. So he was very, very possessive, extremely jealous at times, and it made me want to run instead of making me more like everything's okay, and I would try to allay his fears. Everything, I'm not cheating on you. What are you jealous about? Not doing anything. But then after a while, it was so irritating that it made me want to, you know, get away from him. You know, you clamp down, you grasp out to something, and then, so especially, and how old is your kid? Or 10? Okay, so you're not in the delectable years yet, but they're coming. Because then somehow, you know, children change and they turn into monsters, you know, at the age of like 12 or 13. Yeah, it's a whole different deal. So, but I noticed this edge, and so there were influences, and so he would say this to me, which kind of, I didn't know about Buddhism then, but I was thinking about it, and I thought, oh, so love's equated with jealousy. Like that they should go together, according to him. So I thought about that, and I wasn't a really possessive, jealous person. So I thought about that, and then I'd think, like, I'd watch him at a party and see him talking to somebody, and I thought, I guess I should be jealous. Like I didn't know how to do it, but I thought, you know, and I try to impose in my mind, like, I wonder why he's talking to her. I wonder what they're talking about. But it wasn't, I didn't feel it, it wasn't natural to me, so it was uncomfortable. So then I thought, but so you analyze again, you check. This is before I was Buddhist, but checking, I went, this is not a normal thing to be jealous. Like, this is not a good thing. But you get influenced. So I kind of thought, I guess I should be jealous. And so I kind of joke with him sometimes. He'd come one time, he met me a little late, and I was like, so where were you? You know, were you with somebody else? Like I was kind of playing into it. And he liked that. He responded, he you know, he kind of smiled, and he was like, why? But you see what I mean? So we get influenced in bad ways. That wasn't the truth. That's not really something that makes you happy. It didn't. It makes people insecure. And it's a game you're playing. Like, I didn't really feel jealous. I wasn't worried that he turned up 10 minutes late. But I'm playing. It's like lying to somebody. So you check. So we have so many influences of negativity that you need to do this for your kid. I'm getting my kid into that school. You didn't apply yet? Oh my goodness, it's too late now. You'll never get them into that school. You'll never, you know. So you check, and then you get the pressure, and you get, so again, analyze what you want to do. We want a good education for our kid, you know. And then you explore, look at all the schools, What can you do? Do you want public school, private school? Can you afford private school? Look at the different things, go to the interviews, and you do what you need to do, and you let go without it driving you crazy. Because there's enough in life that drives you crazy, and there'll be edges of it that drive you crazy. So again, you just slowly manifest as much as you can do, and I think if you're choosing kindness again and again, I think you're going to be fine anyway. And I've noticed in life, like, so all of my different friends and the different schools they went to, public, private, community college, Ivy League, whatever, and they ended up, like, if you're going to be successful and do something and have a meaningful life, they're doing it, and it didn't matter what kind of education they got. The higher education didn't guarantee that they were going to be happy like that. So I really think if you're working on kindness and happiness, which I find so much is also related to taking care of others and thinking about how to help others, you're going to be fine. And if you teach that to your kids, they're going to be fine. Make sense? What do you think about that?
Makes sense.
Yes.
In our particular case, I think with our daughter, we're very good at not trying to manipulate the circumstances to make her reach a goal. But however, I found that we try to manipulate her choices, not the environment, but her choices, trying to make her choose and excel at whatever she's choosing. And I find that we put too much pressure to the point that sometimes I doubt whether she's doing that because of us pushing it. But basically what we want for her is to choose her path. And we had this conversation when I said, she's 10 years old. I mean, we are way older, and I don't even know where I want to be. So why are we putting so much pressure on her? And obviously this pressure creates animosity, and it is difficult to communicate. And I'm wondering, I mean, obviously we love her and we want the best, but at what point should we trust her to make her own choices or help her with her? Where does our love, stop? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a balance of you instill some values in her by the time she's 10, and then you support her. And you suggest, and you're certainly going to suggest at 10 of these are some things and certain decisions you're making for her to do, and then you have to let go, I think, to some degree. Let her experiment and try, and keep really great open channels between, so that she'll come and talk to you about stuff as much as you can. And that's what I would say, but there's also an interesting thing of, in our culture, for some reason, I don't find this with my Asian friends as much in the States. There's so much respect in their families. So the parents and the kids like to hang out together a lot, and they do a lot of stuff as family together. But then the rest of us, it's like your kids go to war with you at some point, and they're nasty. I did it with my parents when I grew up, and I don't know why we do that. They're mouthing off, and I don't know why my niece, when she was 16, in the store, I come into a big store and I run into my sister-in-law, and then I was visiting when I used to live in California some years ago, and then I said, "Oh, are the kids?" And she said, "The kids are here," and I said, "Oh, the kids are somewhere else in the store. Great." And then she took her phone, pushed my niece, to call my niece. So when my niece's phone, what came up was Mom. How did she answer the phone, my niece? What? That's not how you answer the phone to your mother. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Right? And so then it was me on the phone. And I said, "Well, hello to you, bundle of sunshine." And then the immediate guilt in her voice, and she's like, "Oh, hi, Aunt Amy." I'm like, "What are you talking to your mother like that for?" And then my niece is conscious, so she said to me, and over the years she's done it, she snips at her parents, her mother in particular, and mothers get all the crap, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, not always, but my friend's family is in the mother was like the bad cop, I want, the father to come home more, hey, everybody, hey, we're gonna, And my friends, I remember when they'd call me and they're like, well, yeah, so he's not speaking to me now, her son. Or she's not speaking to me, right? I'm the great evil of... So somehow we do this, and I don't know, we get it from peers, we learn from peers that we hear how, and I don't know where so many families where, so I think that's the thing is you're going to make some decisions. Sometimes there's a way you can present them with decisions, choices, but they make the choice, but you're presenting them with all these good choices, but empowering her to learn how to make decisions, that's important too, to make wise decisions. So I think those values, you just keep moving those out, and as best as you can, like that. Yes?
With your family example, I think our perspective is they're in the way. So
The
when
parents?
Yeah, I definitely don't agree with it, especially now. I really
Right.
love my family and cherish the time with them. But what you were saying about outside influences encouraging attachment in us, it's so true. And some of our negative habits, it's especially for guys, like the jealousy component, that's a reoccurring theme, and I think a lot of it is. I talk about toxic masculinity a lot, and how a lot of celebrities and people of public figure spaces say that feminism is good for guys too, because I do think there is that pressure for guys to,
Yes.
it's my woman.
Yeah.
I'm good in my relationships with the other sex.
Yeah.
And that kind of creates, I think, that
Yes.
toxic sort of
Right.
mentality.
Thank you. Posturing.
Yeah.
And then we learn it from other people, so when you see other people do it, if they're in your family, and you see a son will get it from his father, and a daughter will get stuff from her mother, and things like that. You learn those behaviors. And I hear people, like I just flew in from Nashville, so I hear on the plane what people talk about. Sorry, No, really, sometimes I'm just like, I did this, and I told her, and we're going to do this, and and I'm just like, that's exhausting. Of the competition and this, and we've got to have that, and she's better than me, and I told her, and we're gonna, and it comes out of like confusion, and I just wanted to stand up on the plane and be like, would everybody just choose kindness? Like you guys, it's so interesting, So, but that's the thing is you do, and you will see kindness around you, and you will see love around expressions and compassion and empathy, and it's contagious. So there are those influences too. And then what we try to do is move ourselves into position to be around that more. That's why Buddhist centers are so great, personally. So, because you do find like-minded people that are trying to get some ideas and trying to do it a little more skillfully, with more loving kindness and compassion and things. And that's what I like about it. And you make some friends at the Buddhist centers, and you meet other parents, per se, or somebody else, and then you realize, yeah, I can choose kindness, I can have that influence, as opposed to the way the rest of the world is doing it. Now, it's not all the world. I mean, I had this really interesting conversation on the plane with a guy who's Catholic that sat next to me. He opened the conversation by saying, and I had a little maroon jacket on, and I had my little computer case that's also maroon, and my shoes, and he just said to me, because it's so easy as a nun, just maroon, that's my color, and he just said, and he looked at me, and he said, he's like, well, you're quite color coordinated, And then when I said I'm a Buddhist nun in the Tibetan tradition, we wear maroon, and then we ended up having this 2-hour conversation about religion and values, and it was interesting. So there's other people, absolutely, that are also choosing kindness. He came from a really good-hearted place, I think, as a practicing Catholic, and like that. So again, doing the best we can, but be careful about those influences. Be careful about, and I've mentioned this many times before here, protecting your mind. What are you watching on TV? And what are you watching on your computer? And what do you surf on the internet, on the sites? And what do you stream on YouTube videos or other streaming devices? What kind of magazines and books do you read? And who do you hang out with? Because it all has an influence. Some of it goes in blatantly, grossly, leaving heavy imprints. Like people say to me they watch a horror film late at night, they can't sleep. Okay, well, yeah. and then it goes in subtly, takes a subtle turn on how it affects. And so you see how these people, you know, are doing relationships on these programs and things like that. Sometimes we're brainwashed that there's supposed to be a happy ending. There isn't. Everybody dies in the end. I'm sorry to inform you. But that's the, you know, I was just telling some story about just, you know, somebody was bringing up films and movies and people giving, you know, spoilers, giving away the end, you know, and people struggling when they communicate and they have to tell you every twist and turn of a plot and you're not really interested in the film. But I was saying years and years ago, my mother, my brother and I went to a film on a Saturday night, the early show, Saturday night. So there's a late show waiting when you come out of the movie theater, and it was packed. And it was a film called The Verdict with Paul Newman. Some of you may remember, an old film. But it was a good legal film, lawyer, courtroom film. And he doesn't die in the end, okay? It wasn't that kind of film, but it had some suspense and things. And my brother was a very tall guy, and we were walking, and so the late show, they look at your faces to see if they like it or they're smiling. You know, sometimes I'd see people come out of there crying, and they're looking at their faces. My brother gets to the middle of the crowd, tall, in a booming voice, and loudly declares, "He dies in the end." And he ruined the movie for everybody. I thought people were going to kill him. Some people were like, you know, like, and my mother was like, "Why did you say that?" What, you know, and it's just, so we have a joke in my family many times. He dies in the end. Like, you do die in the end. So there's not going to be this happy ending of, you can have happiness throughout until the ending, you know, and in Buddhism it's not really the end. The subtle mind goes on. So, but just thinking about showing up and just be careful of what is coming in, and you see, and I'm kind of challenged right now because I have a very close girlfriend who's struggled a lot in her adulthood, and her daughter just dropped out of her last semester of college. I don't get it. I mean, I kind of get it because there wasn't proper parenting. So if you're not setting a positive example, and I know we've been talking more about kids, if you're not setting that positive example for the kids of, you have meaning in life. You show them what it's like to create meaning in life. You may show them what it's like to work hard, to value something and be rewarded for hard work in a good direction, in a positive direction, and a kind heart, and doing it with kindness. Like, and kids get impressed, and they see and they notice that, and they're like, okay. And her kids didn't really have that, so it's hard to say what's really going on, you know. And my friend's kind of really struggling right now, and suffering, and her daughter's not talking to her, and it's, you know, it's the old thing. So do be careful about what are you mirroring in your community, your relationships in your family, and our environment around us with our kids, because they pick up everything. Kids, we know that. They pick up everything. They hear it all. We think they don't. We think we shut the door, but they pick up a lot like that. And then in general, in life, what I was thinking is, you have relatives and long-term friends. What do we do with them, with our attachment and our love? And what do we do when they're a pain in the butt? So you have relations, relatives. You're not going to cut them out of your life because you don't like them and they're maybe pretty challenging. Okay? What about boundaries? Really healthy way to do relationships, to have healthy relationships. Boundaries. Even my last boyfriend and I, we had different activities we did sometimes with our friends. Went off, I'm going to go see so-and-so. Great. You know, I might stay home by myself. I enjoyed my alone time. Or I might pick up with my friends. Then maybe we'd meet later, all together, get together. Things we had sometimes, I was off on retreat once, and he was supporting me to do this longer retreat. I took a break from the center, and great, he stayed in the cabin. I went off to do retreat. Then he met me later. You know, he was really helpful to get me into retreat. I think he was happy to get rid of me at that point. But many ways, we were happy together. We were happy when we were apart. Nice way to have a relationship. So there was some balance, and so when we were apart, that was one thing, and I got to kind of explore and both of us be on our own and do our own things, and then we were happy to see each other. Really happy to be back together again, so that it wouldn't get stale. And then with other relatives, and if somebody's really difficult in your life, small doses. Still going to be there with them, but smaller doses with them so that you can manage. I've mentioned this before in here, how there's a couple people in my life I love dearly. One of them is extremely challenging and very, very self-absorbed, very materialistic, and used to be in a space of a lot of racist, sexist jokes. Younger. The older person, more spacious, flexible, caring about others and things like that. And they do a lot of stuff together. And then I moved back to the East Coast, and they were including me. Like, you want to come do the, whatever. And I go out, and it would be the three of us all day. And I couldn't deal with the dominance of the racist, sexist jokes and how the other person would laugh at them, even though that weren't his values at all. But it was kind of this other person kind of controlled the scene, and that's how he was used to doing, because he's very moody. So the family around him would be kind of tiptoeing, and so you laugh at his jokes. I didn't laugh at his jokes. I was really uncomfortable. So then I decided in the future, I had a really bad time, and I decided in the future I didn't really feel safe to go off with, it happened a couple of times to go off with the two of them. So then they would invite me. One of them would invite me, the one I'm closer to, spacious one. And then I learned to start to say, oh, well, that's so great. Who's going? Right? I just wanted to check. Protect yourself. It's okay. Who's going? Oh, it's just me and him. Oh, great. Well, listen, I'm a little bit busy, but I'd love to meet you guys for lunch. So I'm going to drive out separate. I'll meet in the 2 hours lunch. I'm free to go. Happy to see them for lunch. 2 hours I could manage. And then I'd leave. And then at one point, the older one started to say to me, you don't join us for, what's the deal? It's like you don't want to be around us, or you think you're better than us, or you're, And then I actually had a private moment to feed back to him that I didn't feel safe, this person. I didn't feel emotionally safe. And I gave examples. And I said, well, this happened, and then he spent all the time trashing this person that I really like, and then it was just the racist jokes and the sexist jokes, and you're laughing at them, and I don't really get it. So he got really defensive. So I let it go. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Okay? I took a couple steps there. He said, it's not like that. Took a step back. And then slowly, over the course of a few months, some other people fed back to him the same thing. Because it comes out eventually. You don't have to make the proving point and be the one to, I'm going to sort it in the family. Old Uncle Charlie is toxic. We're going to, it'll come out, and people, and then other people, and then things adjusted. Things dramatically adjusted. When he started to tell this other younger person, you can't be like that. It's not working. And started calling him on it. And then it empowered other people to call him on it. So it's actually very different now, like that. So again, within reason, set healthy boundaries. My teachers do. I think it's perfectly okay. And again, with a warm heart. I'm not judging you, I'm not better than you, because we're all the same. We're all the same in many ways, right? And, but I'm being reasonable of what is going to work to keep my mind positive. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow night with more specific things like that. So I also want to add some things of getting up, waking yourself up in relationship. Are you bringing, what are you bringing? Are you bringing some of these things? And let me, and these can also counter addictive tendencies, addictive behavior, attachment, the behavior of attachment. Number 1 is generosity. Generosity. One other thing I wanted to also say in relation to, let's say, you could say toxic behavior, toxic relationships, but they're not always toxic. It's just somebody's really troubled. We have people in our lives who might be alcoholic, who might be drug addicts, sex addicts, or gamblers. shopping addicts or things like that, people that have very extreme tendencies, right? So karma is also at play. And karma simply means there are previous imprints that you created from your activities of your body, speech, and mind. Buddhism does believe in reincarnation, but everything right now that we think, say, and do leaves an imprint in our consciousness, in our mind. Just your mind, not somebody else's mind, in my mind. So if I think, do, and say happy things, it creates, and positive things, it creates happiness for me in the future. And if I think, do, and say negative things, and participate in negative activities, that will leave an imprint in my mind for suffering for me in the future. So if you're involved in a relationship like that, somebody abuses you like that, it's not necessarily about blaming the other person. Okay? They are perpetuating a certain behavior that's not okay. Okay? But karma's so I've got some karma in me, some seeds unfolding in my consciousness, we would say ripening now, ripening in a certain configuration that's causing me to suffer. Part of the suffering is purification. So if I don't like it, I don't like what's appearing right now, okay? That's a type of purification. It means it's cleaning out. And when I'm dying, maybe more peaceful. Okay? And the other part is just taking ownership. I must have created something in the past. These seeds are in my mind, because Buddhism says, this is a little radical, everything comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. So if the seeds are in my mind to have that happen, that's the only reason it's happening. And the better I engage in a positive way with kindness, loving kindness, that's the best I can do sometimes. And sometimes you can't fix people. They're going to go off and do their own thing. You lend as much support as you can, understanding the past imprints that I've made. That's all, period. I'm not blaming myself for negative behavior. I'm just taking ownership and realizing that's where it must come from. Tibetan Buddhism says that. It comes from the mind. It's not this person's fault. It's not that person's fault. It's not because she was abused that she acts like that, and blaming the abuser. So you can blame the abuser for the rest of your life, and then it holds you hostage. Then it holds you hostage. So Archbishop Desmond Tutu wrote a book with his daughter called The Book of Forgiving. And there's some wonderful exercises in there if you've suffered from great abuse, or you feel there are things, some major things in your life, or people you'd like to forgive. Even it starts with yourself. But very powerful tools of telling your story to someone safe, possibly the perpetrator, the abuser, if they're still alive, if they're willing to hear, but somebody that will listen to you. Doesn't have to be them, but somebody that's safe, that can hold the story, slowly moving through a path of forgiveness. And then here's what's interesting at the end. After you forgive, the fourth step is you choose to either renew the relationship, that means continue, in a new way, renew, right? Or let it go. Because there are some relationships, you've been through it, it's not about changing the other person. You can't do that. You can only change your mind. You can only change yourself, your attitude. So you learn a little bit, this person's incapable, they're going to be like that. I accept that to a degree. That's how they are. Why are they like that? Well, they were abused. They had this kind of thing. Why are they like that? They can't help it. I accept that. I do forgive them, but I'm realizing I'm not able to go back into the lion's den. I can't do it. I can't do it. Just pulls me in the wrong way, and I'm not strong enough to maintain. That's okay. It's not anything to feel guilty about. It's just, thank you, this is where I am. It could change in the future, so you can leave that open. It could change. But then don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if you wake up the next morning and you have to forgive again. It's a process. It's a process. But it's perfectly okay with certain things. But we're trying not to cut people out of our lives, but I'm talking about severe abuse and things like that. And otherwise, you lend support to people, trying not to enable. If someone's an alcoholic, for instance, you can't have them drinking in your house. And they'll tell you every story of why. I mean, the bravest thing I've heard about from some people that I work with and people that I talk with and students that have come, some of the bravest things, the hardest thing I think must be for a parent of a drug addict, okay? When the child's been back at the house, they've given the money, they've done all the rehabs and when the child turns up once again using, wanting to come and stay, wanting some more money, and the parent has said no. And you know that your child may be released and die out there.
Yeah.
Homelessness, whatever else they go through, like that. But they knew having them come back again, the cycle just perpetuated. It didn't end at all. The cycle just went on. And some of those kids, that was a wake-up call, and some of them made it out of addiction. It was so impressive. But when the parents said, like, oh my God, I just thought I was going to go hang myself after that. Like after I said no, but they knew and they also had support to do that. They'd been in the counseling also for years with the child and things like that. So it's a process. That's some of the hardest stuff I've heard people doing. And sometimes the kid made it out like that, had a good ending like that. So I think we do the best we can. And knowing that as humans we're flawed and we make mistakes and we're going to muck it up. And there's forgiveness. So there's forgiveness for myself too when I do it because I'm a human being. So Buddha nature is perfect, no mistakes. But human nature, we are going to make some mistakes like that. Let's see if there's one other last thing I was going to... So one thing you can ask yourself is how much generosity is in my relationship? And this is again with love, talking about love, because love is about the other. How much generosity? Generosity of spirit I'm talking about. This is not just giving money, and generosity of spirit. You know, and I've noticed this, and I have a girlfriend, she and her husband I think have a really good relationship and great kids, and they've worked on it, and they, you know, and he plays basketball 3 nights a week. It's not really what she wants. She'd like him to be home. He travels a lot also for his work, and she doesn't like to be home alone, and she'll say that, and they found a way, they make it work. And so she gives him the 3, she knows he loves that. That's his thing. And that's his exercise, and she does her own exercise classes. She has her own things. She goes off, and she has things that she wants to do that he's kind of like, why does she do that? And, you know, she's going off to the show in New York, and he wants her to, you know, and they adapt. And so she's kind of given him the 3 nights, like generosity, a spirit. And I said, I think it's great you can do that. He loves that. And she goes, I know. That's why she does. She knows he loves it. So it makes him happier. That's what she wants. She wants him to be happy. And then he knows that she really likes to do family vacations. And he sometimes gets bored, or there's a family dinner, there's a family thing, and she wants him to be there. And he's there. He turns up. He hates it. He hates going to those things. But he knows that's important to her. There's a certain responsibility he has. It makes her happy. He turns up. It was so sweet recently. She turned 60. And I said, what did you do? And she had other plans, like bigger plans for the birthday. But what did you do on your birthday? I said to her. And I tried to call her, and she was an all-day something. And then she said that he took off of work on her birthday. He never takes off of work for anything like that. Never. But he did. Because it was a big birthday, and it made her happy, and they had the day together, and they had a really nice, leisurely day. And I was so touched by that. Okay, so generosity. What could you add to your relationship like that? Can you make a slight adjustment? You surprise your partner. Surprise your partner. And please know, in your relationships, you think you know the person. Whether you've been with them a little while, whether or not, you know them, there's always something left to be discovered. I really believe that. There's always something positive left to be discovered. Okay? This is another thing I wanted to talk about with new relationships. You'd like to have a relationship. So again, part of it is getting healthy yourself, being reasonable yourself, being clear what kind of relationship you want so that you're not settling and squeezing somebody into a mold that you want that is not them. Because 2 to 3 months later they pop out. And this is not the person you want to be with. Okay? But if we analyze a little bit more accurately, and I know we've done this before in here, if we analyze more accurately, let's look at the information that's walking toward us when you find an object of attraction. Okay? If you remember. Here comes the person. Let's analyze what's there. We've got the fleshy oblong thing here, the head, right, on the top. And then you've got two circles, color here. You've got some kind of material here, sometimes not. Okay? There's a hole here and sound comes out. Right? This is what's going on. Then you've got a longer kind of torso type of thing and 4 appendages, and this is often covered with material. That's it. That's the basic stuff of the data, I'm going to say, the information that's out there, right? And they come walking toward you. You see them at a party. There's a dinner. Your friends introduce you to somebody, and you have a positive karmic seed ripening now. Something past you did, positive. Now you're having happiness, experiencing, rising in your mind. And that causes attraction to what happens. But then what it does is it over-embellishes the reality that's there, the information that's there. Okay? So sometimes what happens is it causes us, and it creates attachment through this process. And if you're over-embellishing, it's attachment. And then that attachment vomits a projected fantasy onto the actual data that's there, like icing on like a gingerbread thing. And it drips down and it obscures my view. And now I'm not actually seeing, but I've got this gorgeous icing that I just poured out all over it. And it's just wonderful and perfect, and I've got to have it. Enchanting. And that's how we first fall in love and come into the object of attraction, right? But isn't that true? Isn't that what happens? I've done it many times myself. Okay? So you go over a cliff, and everything's wonderful in the beginning, and you're dating and you're going out, and a month goes by, and a couple months, and you introduce them to your friends, and then they meet your friends, and then later you say to your friends, what do you think? What do your friends say?
Meh.
Yeah. Yeah, I was amazed sometimes when my friends were like, this is my perfect, like, he's amazing. My friends were like, he's all right. I was like, are you kidding me? So isn't it interesting? There's sign number 1. How interesting. Is it the person or is it my mind? It's from your mind. How interesting that I'm having a different experience of them than my friend. Is it them out there? And then slowly, 2, 3, 6 months goes by, the icing drips off. And suddenly there they are. I didn't know she had that mole on her forehead. His breath smells. When he takes off his shoes, his feet are really pretty pungent. Right? Reality. That was there all the time. But attachment doesn't let you see that. Attachment covers over completely. And it's the same way with aversion, hatred, anger. You underestimate. And then what gets exaggerated is every negative quality about the person. I already discussed that in relation to the guy I worked with. But we're just talking about attraction now. So what if you met somebody? You want to have a relationship. Okay, nothing wrong with that, right? And what if you're working on yourself? And you slowly, you see the pockets you fall into and the negativity you get into, and everybody knows their own stuff that you're working with. But you're evolving and you're committed to working on it. And I want to have a relationship. And maybe I want a companion. And maybe I want, to go to a Buddhist center with somebody. Maybe I want to have kids. Or get married. Or buy a house with somebody. It's all fine. No problem, right? And I'd like to kind of be with somebody for a while, and maybe we can kind of create a meaningful life together and try to, glean some happiness. I know there's going to be problems, and at some point we'll be separated, because at least in death we'll definitely be separated. But maybe we can really have a good run at it, and I hope I can contribute to their well-being, and they could contribute to mine, and then you do it. It's just much more reasonable than having some extreme kind of, it has to be like this, and then you wake up a few months later, and I used to have people say to me, I thought you liked doing da-da-da-da, and I said, I never said that. Who said that? Were you out with somebody else? I didn't say that. And then they had a projection, they had a fantasy about, because one time we went rock climbing. Okay, they were a rock climber. So and what happens is when you meet a new partner, they stretch you in what their interests are, and you do those interests for a little while. And some of the interests you like. So I went rock climbing one time. I wanted to try it. That's cool. We went, a little thing. We went rock climbing. I tried it. It was kind of fun. I didn't really want to do it again. So suddenly that was my little trial. He was kind of checking me out. Can she do this? Does she like to, Okay, I tried it. I tried many things. No problem. But I didn't want to do it again. So then suddenly I'm a rock climber. Well, you went? I said, I went one time. So be skillful. It's nice to experiment, but then and then you end up falling into some rut. And this wasn't what I had intended at all, because in the beginning, when I met you on the train, you were reading a book, and I thought you were a big reader, and then ended up one guy I went out with, was not really very bright. But I saw he had this book. It was the only book he had read in 10 years. And later I got to know him. But you jump right in the beginning. Sometimes you jump and you're right into this sexual relationship, and you wake up later and it's like, ooh, it's really not my type at all. So why don't you wait and proceed slowly? Why can't you be friends first and find out who they really are and what they think about what their values are, how it works, what kind of things they have in mind in their lives, and what kind of relationship they might want to have, and am I listening well and practicing generosity of spirit and thinking about them and seeing where it goes. And then you might find quite easily after 4 or 5 months, before I really got into this isn't really what I want to do. Or it is, and it's deepening, and it's getting pretty nice. Make sense? Possible? So just analyze a little bit more clearly what's happening. I'm imputing, he opens his mouth, but sound comes out of here with your information. Sound comes out, and then I interpret it's the most mellifluous voice I've ever heard in my life. So somebody else is just sound. So kind of check out positive karmic seed ripening right now. That's nice. It feels nice. We like to be attracted to people. But try to see a little bit more clearly. Any other questions, comments? Is it helpful about how to have relationships? What didn't I talk about? What do you need to hear that you're kind of like, wait a minute, what about?
I have 2 questions.
Please.
When you said that some of the suffering is karmic, and what about the other? Is there any other suffering that is not cleansing?
No, what causes suffering?
Yeah, you said that some of the suffering is cleaning karma.
Is clean. If you're suffering, it can purify negative karma.
Is that all suffering, or is there a suffering that is not fulfilling that purpose?
All suffering is purifying negative karma. Mm-hmm. And suffering comes from karma and delusion. That's it. Yeah.
And I have another question. When you were talking about boundaries, what about those instances in which you don't know how to make those boundaries because the relationship is too close, or you are too vulnerable, or it's been a relationship with someone since you were born? And
yes. Yeah. I would slowly get some help in how to introduce boundaries. It's really helpful. You can learn, whether you are in therapy or you check with someone like that. I think it's very helpful to get find a friend that sets boundaries that you find is really clear, and talk with some other people like that if you can. Is there somebody like that in your life that you could turn to? That?
Yes, but it just comes into my mind that sometimes the boundaries have to be sort of agreed upon. Like, I'm gonna do this, but then you're gonna respect that.
No,
right?
It's not at all. It's not changing the other person. It is totally your mind and from your own side.
Okay.
And it will change the other person, but you can't have an expectation of that.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to get clear from my side with kindness, compassion. I give an example. So my mother, who passed away some years ago, was really a wonderful person and a great mother, and I loved her dearly. I still do. But she could manipulate and make me feel really guilty. And I lived in California, and I would fly in twice a year to visit my parents. It was important to me, and I had a great relationship with them. And but she didn't want me to ever leave the house without her during that 10-day, 2-week period. It was like, okay, you're back. Okay, we're gonna. And I had friends. I wanted to see friends, and I would try to visit a friend in Washington D.C. This is from Philadelphia, so I'd be there for a couple of days, leaving my mother. And she saw no point in why I needed to go. But she would start with, she had a voice. Some of your mothers have a voice. You know that voice? And I said, I'm going to DC on Thursday. Oh. You know. Oh, you have to go there? Oh, you're gonna, oh, all right then. I thought you came in to spend time with us. You know, it was like, she really was the maximum, you know, she really had mastered it. And it would get me like putting a jagged knife in and turning it. It would just get me so bad. And my brother and sister somehow were able to blow that off and not, but it really affected me. So I'd end up canceling, but normally what would happen is I immediately turned into a spiteful 14-year-old. When she'd push that button and I go right in there. Now, the thing is, nobody treated me like that in my life, other than my mother. And I would never treat anybody the way I treat her that way. When we get into this fight, mothers and daughters sometimes do this, so. And I didn't like it, and she didn't like it. We wanted to have a good time together, because we did like to spend time together. So, I go back to my practice. Again, and again, and again, and I did this meditation with her in front of me. Over and over. She was a 50s housewife, so her life was her kids, and I was the youngest. So she's grabbing on to what was giving her meaning in life, trying to figure out what she, you know, difficult trying to sustain that space. And this was her most precious thing. This is how she kind of viewed her life, was through her kids. And so, you know, understanding that more and over I went into these meditations. What was her expectation? What was her purpose and her motivation in this thing? And thinking about her and thinking about how she raised me and what was my motivation in the thing. And slowly I started then role-playing a new behavior from my side. How respectful adults speak to each other. I would never talk to anyone the way I talked to my mother. It was so disrespectful. How could, you know, and I'd start yelling at her, no, you're so possessive, and you're, you know, this, and how, and so I started over and over putting her in front of me, and she'd say exactly the same things to me, and I would counter with respect, and in a way that mature adults talk to each other. Again and again I practiced it, okay? So now the 80th time, I am coming from the airport, coming through the front door of the house. Here I am. These are the people of the best practice, or those most intimate to you. Fantastic challenge. And I'm coming through the doorway of the house, and I'm literally before it, I'm like, okay, this is your chance. Like, to put it into action. How was it going to go with my mind? Did the imprints work at all, of all the work that I had tried in short meditations? But lots of them, right? And I was really like, okay, buckle your seatbelt, like, go. And I walked in, and sometimes I'd come right through the door, hi mom, and put my arms around her to hug her, and she'd right away, but can you just stay 2 more days? Like, she wouldn't even, it was just always more, never satisfied like this. So then we, great, happy to see each other, sitting in the kitchen, and I said, well, let's just discuss the plans, because Tuesday I'm going to see so-and-so, and the voice came, okay, and I said, well, and I caught it, and I said, and I gave her a whole respectful, I said, you know, I just wanted to tell you the plans because I'm really looking forward to spending time with you. And I know you, I think, really want to spend time, and I know you said the weekend was even better because then Dad is free. And I've kind of got some ideas of things we want to do, and maybe you have some ideas, I hope you do. So I'm just telling you I'm going to be back Thursday, and let me know if you don't want to do that, because I'll change my plans, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm hoping, you know, I'm really looking forward, I think we're going to have some fun. She was speechless. The first, she didn't know what to do, and she kept trying to access the button to get the spiteful 14-year-old to arise, and I had disengaged the button, right? It wasn't about her, right? So, and it was the first time when I went, and it was the only time I remember, first time she said, have a good time, when I left. So just my behavior, no expectation she was going to do anything differently, and she was like, she said, I do want to spend the time. I'm looking forward to it too. And I said, great. She said, well, let's think up some fun things. And then I'm back there. She goes, okay, we'll have a good time. Like, so you can't have them meet you on the other side. You're being clear in a gentle, compassionate, skillful way. But I wasn't glib about it. You know, well, I'm just going down there for, you know, no, I was really honest about how adults talk to each other in a nice way. And fortunately, she responded. Now, don't be upset with yourself if the next time I walked through the door, I fell flat on my face. Okay? It's a process. It's a process. Is that helpful? You can do it. You can do it. So I'm going to finish there, and I want to thank you. I hope this was helpful. And tomorrow we're going to talk about being positive. How do we create positive things? That's kind of tacked on to this, but it's going to be some other things we're talking about. I'd like to also, in conclusion, we had a motivation in the beginning to dedicate the merit, whatever positive energy we've created. I would like to invest that in our being able to fully wake up and be able to move along a path of full awakening so we can be of the most benefit to all living beings and really have healthy relationships. And I think really in our relationships, if there's always choices and things, and I think if we can choose kindness, choose love, I think is really the path as much as we can when it's possible. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Venerable.